On Saturday, April 26, 1986, there was an explosion and fire in reactor number 4 during a technical test at the Chernobyl nuclear power station. The power station was located in what was then the Soviet Union in Ukraine. From the explosion, the radiation released was 400 times more radiation than that released by the atomic bomb in Hiroshima. Radioactive fallout spread across parts of the Soviet Union, Scandinavia, Eastern Europe, the UK, and eastern parts of the United States. Large areas in Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia were contaminated the worst. Around 60% of the radioactive fallout ended up in Belarus. Chernobyl to this day remains the largest nuclear disaster in history, with more than 116,000 people being forced to evacuate the area immediately. Around 360,000 people in total needed to move following the disaster. They never returned. The immediate impact on the environment is very important. An area that received a great amount of radiation was a pine forest located 13 kilometers or 8 miles away from the Chernobyl nuclear power station. It is now known as the Red Forest. Due to this area receiving the highest levels of radiation, the pine trees died almost immediately and the leaves on the trees turned red. The initial impact and environmental response that the area's wildlife had after the explosion led people to believe that the area would become a desert and would never recover or have the ability to sustain life. This was due to the amount of time needed for radioactivity to decompose and disappear from the environment. Which brings us to question, was the Chernobyl disaster beneficial to the Ukrainian environment? Chernobyl was beneficial for the Ukrainian environment because by getting rid of humans, it gave animals the chance to repopulate, plants the chance to regrow over the newly unpopulated land, fish the ability and the space they needed to grow to larger sizes, and birds were able to create an entirely new ecosystem. If you think about the Chernobyl disaster, you probably think of something like the image above. But today, 33 years after the accident, the Chernobyl exclusion zone spreads over parts of Ukraine, Belarus, and is home to brown bear, bison, wolves, lynx, horses, and more than 200 bird species. That sounds like a lot of birds. In March of 2019, 30 researchers from the United Kingdom met in England to present studies. The studies conducted were on large mammals, nesting birds, amphibians, fish, bumblebees, earthworms, bacteria, plant decomposition, and 200 species of birds that created their own ecosystem within the exclusion zone. These studies showed the area had great biodiversity, and all groups studied showed to have maintained a steady population within the exclusion zone. An example of the exclusion zone's biodiversity is given by the TREE project. TREE stands for Transfer Exposure Effects. The study was led by Nick Bradford. As part of the project, motion detection cameras were strategically placed for several years in different areas of the exclusion zone. The pictures and videos that were captured shows the abundance and variety of animals at all levels of radiation. These cameras also captured the first sighting of a brown bear and European bison inside the Ukrainian zone, as well as the increase in the number of wolves and Przewalski horses. The amphibians of Chernobyl have shown to be thriving, even in the more contaminated areas. Signs have now been found to show different adaptive responses and evolution to life with radiation. An example of these adaptive responses being that frogs within the exclusion zone are darker than frogs outside the exclusion zone. This could possibly be a defense against the radiation or an effect that the radiation has had, meaning wildlife could be much more resistant to radiation than previously thought to be. Along with organisms could be starting to show adaptive responses that would allow them to live within the exclusion zone. The number of elk, deer, and wild boar within the Belarusian half of the Chernobyl exclusion zone today are around the same as those in 4 nearby uncontaminated nature preserves. According to a study led by author Michael Byrne, the gray wolf population has seen a huge increase. He said their population density within the zone estimated at up to 7 times greater than surrounding nature reserves. This study also showed that these wolves were reproducing then leaving the exclusion zone. Jokingly, Byrne added that no wolves there were glowing, they all have 4 legs, 2 eyes, and 1 tail. Wolves were once commonly hunted in the area in efforts to protect livestock. Without people being around to hunt them, they have been allowed the opportunity to thrive. The absence of humans in the Chernobyl exclusion zone has created an opportunity for abundant gray wolf populations to even exist. Chernobyl cooling ponds provide catfish populations with an isolated habitat. To the catfish, the ponds are a place free of predators, packed with prey, giving the catfish an all-you-can-eat buffet. Catfish are both predators and scavengers. They are known to feed on insects, fish, amphibians, birds, and even small mammals. These fish will eat almost anything. It doesn't matter if it's dead or alive, as long as it can fit into its gaping mouth. Many jump to conclusions and consider the catfish of Chernobyl to be mutants due to their size and belief that the radiation has mutated them. When in actuality, the catfish's size is actually caused by the lack of natural predators and their ability to live up to 50 years old. Scientists studying the location now believe that plants have the abilities to adapt to the stress of radioactivity developed millions of years ago. The research involved planting crops like soy and flax seeds in a contaminated area not far from the accident site. A control crop was planted in decontaminated soil close by. When scientists compared the proteins found in each seed harvested from different fields, the proteins seen were the same throughout all seeds. Dead trees, leaves, and plants around Chernobyl don't decay at nearly the same rate as plants elsewhere. Researchers have found that some leaves on the ground can be dated back to Chernobyl's initial blast. Plants have the ability to replace dead cells and tissues much easier and faster than animals, even if the damage was done by an animal or radiation. This is allowing plants to easily adapt to radiation levels. After the Chernobyl accident, 1,004 square miles in Ukraine is now an exclusion zone, meaning humans are strictly not allowed to be in the exclusion zone. This absence of humans in the exclusion zone has allowed the area to return to habitat, and has allowed plant life, aquatic life, and animal life to return to a natural state without human disturbance, like hunting, fishing, farming, and building. In 33 years, Chernobyl has gone from what people thought would be a lifeless desert to an area bursting with life and growing animal communities. Life is thriving after the disaster, and many plant and animal species are actually greater than they were prior to the disaster. In conclusion, the accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power station on April 26, 1986, although devastating for people, has allowed plant regrowth, fish the ability to grow to bigger sizes, birds have created their own ecosystem, and it's given large mammals and wolf populations the ability to grow, therefore making the Chernobyl disaster beneficial to the environment.